So I was talking to you the other day, and you had mentioned this term, the LoFi Layup.
LoFi Layup. Right?
Yeah. Just an easy release. And I think there's a lot to talk about there. I mean, personally for me, I love albums and I love larger pieces of work. And especially for the label, Gravitas, we've always wanted to like support that. And I think with the success of Spotify and streaming in general, we've gone in sort of these full circles of like going back to singles,
right?
Which, if we know our musical history, I mean, that's kind of how things started.
Right.
You'd have these 45s, you could fit one song on there, and it was relatively short.
Right.
I mean, what's your thoughts on this? Because it's like, are you good with just like a standalone song? Like, it seems like or are you hoping that you can tell longer stories?
I will always be a romantic that likes longer stories. Ideally, every song that I make belongs to a bigger family that equates to at least an EP, if not an album. You can't always get that way, especially like a great example of a standalone single is just a collab. You know, I have a collab with East Forest, and he does mostly ambient meditation music, and I do my thing. And what we did was definitely in between our thing, you know, and we're both okay with it being a standalone. So that's a great example of when things are fine being a standalone single. Another example is if you're trying label out and it's like, hey, let's just do one. Let's just go on one date.
Yeah. That's a good one.
You know what I mean?
I like that. Yes.
Because then the label isn't emboldened to me or beholden to me in case I'm a nightmare.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that works too. The term lo-fi layup, it's like, it's what I came up with recently in terms of like, let's get more points on the board, you know? And it's that whole thing. It's the Mad Lib approach of like, let's just release some raw beats. Let's do like, not everything has to be part of this giant epic rollout, you know? And we can just release some fun things that are sometimes 1:47 long, you know? And it reminds me of, you know, you're talking about like, we came from the single world, you know, if we go back to like, you know, 45s and then before that wax cylinders and all that, like there's that phrase, I don't know who said it, but history doesn't repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. And it's the same way, you know, because I hear a lot of musicians griping about single culture. But if you do your homework, it actually originated, the entire recording industry originated as a single culture. So this isn't a new thing. If we zoom way out, the golden era of albums, whenever that was, it's almost like a Make America Great. I think it's like, when was that?
I would say the 90s.
Right.
I would say the 90s.
Right. But still, that's still major label. Like,
true.
Like it was still very authoritarian. You know what I mean? It wasn't in the artist.
It had a very dark side.
Very dark side.
And lots of plastic. Lots of plastic. Damage,
yeah. Lots of powder on desks. Lots of huge budgets.
Lots of Porsches,
Lots of Porsches.
Hair gels.
Exactly. And a lot of local bands never breaking because they couldn't. They couldn't. It was like, that was such a bipolar time. You were a local band or you were signed and you were a national act. And there was nothing in between.
Yeah.
Rarely was there, you know. But I just think about like that golden album of the heyday in the long run will be a very narrow time. So either we can get romantic about that or we can get real about that, you know, and we can adapt. And my friends who talk about blah, blah, blah on streaming, it's like you can still have your music on Spotify. Like nobody's stopping you from pressing CDs. Nobody's stopping you from pressing vinyl. Nobody's stopping you from putting your whole discography on Bandcamp for a certain price.
True.
There's so many things that you can still do as an artist to monetize your work that are in your best interest, that you can control, and then you can continually reinvent and change your mind.
Yeah.
And I am a firm believer that this is still the best era ever for the independent musician.
Yeah.
And I hope it will continue to get better.